So why am I here? I want to tell you about who I am, first of all. Business guy, tech guy, politician. That's why I wasn't here last year. I was running for office. Recently become a farmer. That's also fun. I'm a bit of a scotch drinker. That's me in the malting barn at Glenlivet in Speyside. I presented at Bitnorth. That's from 2009, I believe. So am I ready for this? Am I ready to talk to you about the absurdity of homeopathy? You're going to have to tell me later. We're going to partake in some of that. But before we go on, I encourage you to have some coffee. I see a lot of coffee monks here. You like coffee? Yep. Oh, yeah. Unbeknownst to Alistair and Becky and Chris, I coordinated things with the Kamak management here. All of the coffee all weekend is decaf. So I hope none of you missed the caffeine. I don't think you're going to notice it. I think it's all in your head. So enjoy. Homeopathy. How many people here, I talked to a number of people yesterday about homeopathy. There are definitely believers here, there are pseudo-skeptics, and then there are major skeptics. How many people here think homeopathy is a bunch of bunk? Just show of hands. More than half. I'm not going to ask the people who believe in it to put themselves out. Let me tell you, if you take that word, if you take the absurdity of homeopathy, that phrase, and you Google it, you can find no shortage of websites, of blogs, of YouTube videos, of rants, of poems, beat poems. All kinds of things attacking homeopathy. And I thought, this isn't my topic. And I don't really know a lot about homeopathy. I'm going to be open-minded about my skepticism of homeopathy. I knew it involved little amounts. Now, here's the joke. I think the one thing about homeopathy nobody talks about that's the most absurd is that it does not guarantee eternal life. It really doesn't, and it should. But in the end, you're going to die. Western medicine on the other... Oh, no, wait. Sorry. So, what is homeopathy? How many people here think they know what homeopathy is? It's a smaller group, all right? It's much smaller than the people that think it's bunk. That's interesting. I don't know. It's on Wikipedia. It's bullshit. It must be. All right, good. First principle, like cures like. Now, does that sound really ridiculous? Well, we use snake venom to create antivenom. We use stimulants like Ritalin to treat hyperactivity. We use attenuated viruses to create vaccines. So like can cure like. Like can do good things. We do that all the time. But wait, there's got to be something more absurd in homeopathy. There has to be. Law of minimum dose. Oh, that sounds ridiculous. This is leading into the thing I know a lot of you think is the bunk part of homeopathy. Right? This is the joke. Engineers think the glass is twice as big as it needs to be. Right? So look here. This is an actual over-the-counter medication label, and look at what it says. This is for allopathic, sort of Western modern medicine. Do not take more than directed. The smallest effective dose should be used. Well, homeopathy says the same thing. Just use as much as you need. I don't know how absurd that is. But, alas, I did find a problem. In homeopathy, you create medications where you take a small amount of something and you dilute it and you shake it in a certain way called succussion. And you keep doing that over and over and over again, only it's done in powers of 10s or 100 typically, not in halves, as we're doing here. But as you can see, it gets small pretty quick. Dilutions, 10 to the minus 2 or 10% solution is like a starting point for mixing things. You don't even give that out to a patient. And on the charts for doing homeopathy, you can see things that go to 10 to the minus 400 and beyond. Now, I don't know how many people here know what 10 to the minus 400 looks like. I didn't put it up. But there is a problem. How many people here know who Avogadro was? Right. Avogadro is constant. So you have a molecule. This happens to be, I'm sure people here recognize it. It's the caffeine that's going to disappear when you start diluting it too much. The caffeine that's not in your coffee this weekend. But you all feel fine, right? Nobody's getting cranky. Nobody's got a headache. It's all good. Now, in succession, the only evidence that they've said is, well, look, even after you've gotten rid of every conceivable molecule, because the way that it works is you dilute it, you dilute it, you dilute it, to the point where you cannot technically even have even one molecule of the original substance in it. So they said, well, it's nanochemistry and nanomedicine, and we've shown studies that said when you shake water and you do things, we can actually affect the pH. I found this on a website in an open letter written to the British Medical Association defending homeopathy. So I called my best friend who's a PhD chemist, and he said, bullshit. 10 to the minus 400, right? We have a problem. Because, and this is what threw me off, because of the number of moles, right? The term mole, I'll talk about molecules, and there's no caffeine in it, but it's in the way. Not voles, by the way, which we recently found digging up potatoes last weekend at the farm. Those were babies, but the mother was eating our potatoes. 1 mole of something is 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd molecules of it. And then, based on that, you get your molar weight. Now, nanoscience. How many people know what this is? Jonathan, I bet you do.
Yeah, it's a scimitar. Well,
It's a Damascus sword. Damascus steel, right? So, how many people know that recently it was discovered that one of the interesting features about the steel that was developed hundreds of years ago is that it has carbon nanotubes in it. Did anyone know how to make carbon nanotubes back in the days when they were making these? No, they did not. But the process that they used created the carbon nanotube. So, that's what led me into this. That was the intro for talking about, okay, we can affect the pH of the water. Maybe there's nanomedicine. It just doesn't work, right? I switch molecules. That's still the same little caffeine molecule. It's still going away. You have to make a choice with homeopathy. You can choose to take the blue pill and just say it's bullshit, or you can question it some more. Or you can take the red pill. There are effects, right? Aspirin. I think somebody mentioned this last night, actually, right? About the willow tree. Didn't someone mention that? I don't know. How many people know that aspirin derived originally from its roots of the white willow, right? Salicylum, it eventually went on to become salicylic acid, and acetyl salicylic acid, which is developed by Bayer, and that's what aspirin is. But it derived from something that literally was being used in the time of Hippocrates and prior. It's an ancient medicine. So old forms of medicine aren't necessarily bad. We've modernized them. There are effects. There's different kinds of effects. You've all heard of the placebo effect. How many people here know what the Hawthorne effect is? A couple people? 3? The Hawthorne effect, so the placebo effect means I've given you something, you thought you had lovely, yummy, caffeinated coffee, and you were feeling good until I told you that it didn't have caffeine in it. And now there's a few irritable people in the room. Alistair, I'm sorry, you'll get a refund from Kamak, they promised, so, on the caffeine. The Hawthorne effect is when people change their behavior, typically improving in some way, but they change their behavior because they know that they're being studied. They don't know if they've been given a placebo, they don't know if they've been given the real thing, but their behavior, their productivity, whatever it might be, their changes just because they know that they're subject of study. So you might have a case where both the placebo and the medication people, for example, are improving. Here's a quote, and I'm not going to read it. You can read it to you. This is an exact quote from an abstract published by the Annals of Internal Medicine from the American College of Physicians. And it goes on to basically say at the end, look, and this was in the context of this paper was, can placebo effects of rituals, of ancient rituals, have an actual clinical effect? And basically the answer was, well, there's certainly a strong correlation. No one can really prove a causation. But in the end, who decides? And I think the controversy around homeopathy, and the reason I was interested in this topic when I got it was, I don't really know a lot about homeopathy. I don't care. I don't participate in homeopathy. I don't subscribe to homeopathy. But I don't care if people choose to. I know that there are people in this room who do believe it. I know plenty of people who believe it. However, that's their choice. Your mileage may vary. You might find that works for you. In the end, just remember this. There is no spoon. Thank you very much.